morning, every course for a healthy plastic-free Mediterranean Sea and building a sustainable blue economy in the basin. The course is organized in the framework of the pilot action for a healthy plastic-free Mediterranean Sea, and we are very happy to announce that we have more than 300 people registered for the entire course and about 100 people registered for today's webinar. I am Erasmia Castanidi from the Hellenic Center of Marine Research and the Knowledge Platform Coordinator of the Bluemed project. And today is the second of our webinar series, and it will be on research and monitoring protocols and the impact on plastics on marine biota. The speaker today is Françoise Claro, who is a doctor in zoology and a veterinarian. She is also responsible for the sea turtle program at the National History Museum of France within the unit of Patrinat. She is the national referent and the French scientific pilot for the MSFT sea turtle good environmental status, and also acts as an associate expert for her Infremer MSFT marine litter good environmental status counterparts. The talk will last 45 minutes, and at the end, you will be able to ask questions via the questions tab on the webinar panel. And please use the allocated 15 minutes at the end of the talk to ask these questions so that our presenter will not be disturbed. A few technical remarks about the whole course, which will last 1.5 months, and all the lessons will either be given synchronously, like today, in a webinar, or asynchronously via the e-training website. And just for your information, the webinars will also be uploaded on the website. So I will give the floor to Françoise now to make her presentation.
Thank you. I have a problem because of the screen. No problem. So today I will present the impact of marine litter on biota and the research and monitoring which are carried out about this topic. First of all, I will present a general overview and focus on the Marine Strategy Directive. The monitoring of marine litter is carried out and funded by the member state in Europe and by the contracting parties of Regional Sea Convention. In Med, this is the Barcelona Convention. In Europe, the Marine Strategy Directive is a framework for this monitoring, and the goal is of this directive is to maintain and restore the good status of European seas. The Bluemed initiative is an action for coordination and supporting and funded by EU within H2020 framework program. And there are several funding schemes which can fund the research and the technical aspects of marine litter study and monitoring. Several Directorate General in European Commission are concerned by that, DG Environment, DG MAR, and DG Research and Initiative. And they are launching calls. You know probably the H2024 framework program, and there are also more regional programs which are FEDER Interreg. And in Med, you will see that there are several programs using this scheme. If you look at the peer review publication on marine litter, you will see that since 1990 there is a very high increase of the number of publications, and you can see in green that the marine litter ingestion and entanglement generate also a lot of publication. The number of projects with relevant outputs about marine litter and about impact and monitoring, you can see also is relatively high. And here you have a general table of several projects about marine litter. And here in more detail, you can see the more recent project which have been launched and carried out about marine litter. And as you can see here, about the impact of marine litter on biota, there are several projects. One big project is Interreg-Med, is Plastic Buster MPA. And from DGM, there is Indicit, Metziliter, and Medregion, Metzis, following Metzis, and so on. So we will go more in depth afterwards. There are also other directives dealing with marine litter and plastics in particular, the Plastic Strategy Directive for single-use plastic and the port reception facilities. And the monitoring also is important for all those directives, and there are also funding and research encouraged for providing technical results for these all these directives. And of course, the regional cooperation is very important for carrying out all the studies. If we come back to MSFD and focus on that, the Marine Strategy Directive has described 11 descriptors for the good environmental status. The D10 is on marine litter, and the D1 is on biological diversity. Then between D1 and D10, there are links, and for the assessment especially, but also for monitoring aspects and standard protocol, of course. So there are several steps for MSFD process. The first step is initial assessment, and how can we determine the good environmental status, GES, and the targets. So this has been done by 2012. The second step is to develop and implement a monitoring program. The third step was to develop the program of measures, because there is a program of measures initiated and designed by each country in order to improve or restore the good status of the seas. Then the step 4 was to implement the program of measures, and we are now at the step of another cycle of evaluation, of assessment, and also this is the opportunity to adapt, to improve, or to update the marine strategy and the monitoring program. So the cycle for assessment and monitoring is 6 years within this directive. So the MSFD Commission decision here is precising the methodological standards countries should use for the assessment. But this is a dynamic process, as I said. There are several criteria for marine litter. One is dealing on litter and the different compartments of the sea, and one about microlitter, and two others are about the impact of marine litter on biota through ingestion or through entanglement, and the other adverse effects also within the criteria 4. There is a technical group supporting all this process, MSFD D10 process, which is named Technical Group of Marine Litter, TGML. And this technical group has a very important role. It is mandated by EU for coordinating and supporting implementation process. This group includes more than 100 delegates from coastal marine strategy, from Regional Sea Convention Secretariat, Commission Services, and European Environment Agency, NGOs, and other stakeholders. So there are several items. As you can see, they work on baseline, auxiliary EU for criteria, definition of threshold value, method and calculation. They provide a joint litter category list and update it regularly. They are working on interfacing science and policies, and are linking with project and on joint project initiative Oceans. They maintain a research project list and contribute to the plastic strategy, and also to litter activity beyond EU, like G7, G20, UN Sustainable Development Goals, and UN Environment Agency. Here you can see the monitoring guidance which has been designed and which include common protocol, and with GRC, TGML has contributed to that also. And there is a process of updating this year. And I will tell you more about that in the second part of my presentation. So TGML is working on monitoring scales, for instance. As you can see, there are data already available. For example, here, this data has been collected on assessment cruise for fish stocks. This is the MEDITS program in the Mediterranean Sea. Then the monitoring data allow to have to work on a large scale, and to work, for example, at the entire Med Basin scale. And then with that data, you can work on trends and also on efficiency of reduction measures. Another topic very important is the management of data. The OGS is piloting this process and working with EMODNet, which is the European Marine Observation and Data Network, with a very large database. And the development is connecting with IFREMER and the data litter database developed by France, and coordinating also with the database at the Mediterranean scale, the MEDPOL database, which will be ready in 2023 or 2024. So as you can see, you have data, and you can also produce maps, and there are several functions which are very interesting for extracting data. So TGML also worked on baseline values and trends. And for beach litter, for example, in 2017, with EMODNet, they were starting a data collection, and also they defined the top list litter item with 10 litter item. And the following years, there was work on the concept and methodology, completion and correction of data, aggregation, tidying data set, removing hindrance, and analysis of data sets in the perspective, as I said, of thresholds, target. You can see here the time series were available for all beaches, and at the beach survey, spatial coverage covered all European regions. There are some challenges for sure in this process, and for biota, there is a challenge in defining new indicators for entanglement, and for defining the GS thresholds, and there's also a challenge about understanding harm and working more on risk assessment and on data management. On a more global scale, there is an expert group named GESAMP, working with UN, United Nations Agency, and they provide a recommendation for regional sea convention and programs in order that standard monitoring can be initiated within regional action plans. For example, in Mediterranean, you have the regional action plan MEDPOL, and there are common indicator and standard monitoring which will allow comparison. So here on your table, on this table, you can see that the manager can find information about the feasibility of monitoring for the compartment, different compartments, landed litter, sea floor, biota, sea surface, for the different category of plastic size, mega, micro, meso, micro, and macro litter. And the subcompartment, Atlantic, fish, invertebrate, seabed, megafauna. And here in green, you can see what is relevant. Then they just have, the manager may choose, thanks to this table, which kind of tools they would need for their work, for management and for defining measures and monitoring process. The perspective of the general marine litter topic is that it is very important to work on biomonitoring, in particular on the microplastic ingested by biota. So during the last G7 meeting in France, this proposal has been validated, and the other proposals about the database for on rafted species, which is a big problem also. The G7 members were interested in this topic, and then further discussion will be conducted in the following years. Sorry. So the second part of my presentation is more focused on impact on biodiversity. So there are a lot of sensitive species since entanglement and ingestion have been reported in 914 species. This is the last publication in 2020, which reviewed more than 700 studies about this topic. You can see here, for example, a table with the frequency of occurrence per species for ingestion. And you have other type of interaction and smothering which are taken into account in other publication like this one. And there's a database which is updating the list of sensitive species updating every time. For invertebrates, entanglement is reporting more than 300 taxa. This publication is giving the list here. And among these sensitive species, you have to know that a lot of them, 17%, are endangered species, are listed on the IUCN red list of endangered species. For example, this is entanglement is the main cause of mortality for endangered seals, like the monk seals, the Mediterranean monk seals, and also in other parts of the world. So you can see that there is a big issue for that. The impact on vertebrate has been reported for ingestion and entanglement. So the effects of marine litter are direct or indirect. And indirect because they can occur after a long time. Then some example of this impact is digestive disorder, the most important, which can lead to death, is perforation of the digestive tract and blockage, complete blockage of the transit, digestive transit. For sea turtle, for example, there are buoyancy problem. Then the turtles are not able to dive and to feed on the bottom of the sea, so can lead also to lower nutrition and to problem of reproduction and immunity. The plastic are also releasing some chemicals, so there are some studies working on that. Maybe there are impacts that will be more described in the future about this. And for entanglement, you can imagine that an individual entangled by marine litter loses mobility, then it's difficult for the individual to escape from predators. And in case of very intense entanglement, there is an asphyxia, they can drown, and there are also risk of infection, secondary infection, and amputation if there is a constriction by the marine litter around the body, especially around the flippers. On invertebrates, several impacts have been described as well. For injection of filtering species, some works can show that there are microliter ingested and staying in the digestive tract, but the real impact is for now not very clear. For coral, for example, there is a publication about the impact of microplastic ingested by Acropora, Pocillopora, and Poritas, but this work has been performed carried out in lab, and then the polyps are producing more mucus, and you can see that there are more filaments, and it has been reported bleaching and tissue necrosis and overgrowth. Mechanically, the entanglement is responsible for broken branches, abrasion, wounds, and for corals, and reduce mobility for mobile invertebrates, and also death and smothering. The smothering is something that has been reported also and responsible for risk of disease with the contact of marine litter on the corals, like, for example, in Mayotte reefs, as you can see here, and for corals in other parts of the world. It has been reported that wounds are facilitating, in fact, the impact of pathogenic ciliates and rhodobacterias, since also plastic are covered by pathogens, may be covered by pathogens. There is an impact of marine litter on individual, but also it can have an impact on population. As I said, some species are already endangered due to other anthropogenic pressures, and it has been reported that there is a high impact of lost and abandoned fishing gears, which is one category of the litter at sea. And thousands of marine mammal and turtles are impacted per year. There was a project Fantaret who also reported that there was a loss of stock in Mediterranean, and there's also a publication about the loss of biodiversity, and the litter was of the cause of the loss of biodiversity. As an example for the sea turtles, we have observed that sea turtle like this one here has lost flipper, and if there is a loss of the hind flipper, the turtle cannot dig anymore its nest. So you can see the impact it can have on the reproduction and the viability of the population. And also for invertebrates, some publication have been evaluating that there were an impact of 65% of the communities, which is really a very impressive number. The impact on population, which is for the moment not very well known, but is currently studied, especially by plastic buster MPAs and with the team of Siena University, like Casini and collaborator, is the effects of plastic additive. And using biomarker, you can study that, and you can study the impact of endocrine function and on DNA. And of course, if the impact is high, there is an impact on the survival of population. This is why the research on this kind of topics are so important. The marine policies are monitoring impact on biodiversity, but they are also going further in the development of the tools and of the indicators. For MSFD, as I already said, there are two criteria: ingestion and entanglement and other adverse effect. For Barcelona, within the IMAP program, there is an indicator about amount of litter ingested and rate of entanglement. And within OSPAR, there is an indicator which has been adopted for sea turtle, for ingestion of sea turtle by sea turtle and fulmar, European fulmar, which is a bird species. Then there are several approaches which can be used. You can measure the number of events of ingestion and entanglement, which will provide occurrence, and you can measure the quantities of liter ingested. So you can study that and measure that using the digestive tract of the excretion in the ponds, for example, for sea turtles in the rescue center. For birds, you can also study that in nest. Now, this is what kind of approach. You can also measure the impacts, the lesions, the deaths, the effects. You can see here the threefold approach described by the team of Christina Fossi, which the threefold approach with detect marine litter, the occurrence, abundant weight, and also detect the biomarker, as I said in the former slide, and detect a plastic tracer in the tissues. And another approach is also the risk approach with the cross mapping of occurrence data of the species and the risk of encountering the pressure. Or here it's the risk of pressure, marine litter pressure. So this work done by Darmon and collaborator use aerial data from Ariane campaign, which collected the observation of sea turtle, of and other species, and observation of macrolither. And you can see that here the risk in pink, dark pink, the most risk. For designing the monitoring, there are several steps. It's very important to compile the knowledge, to know what is known already on species, data, the procedure, networks and constraints, which research should be done in complement in order to have more data, to analyze and make tests, to experiment protocol and scenario. And another step which is very important is expertise, regional consultation, and to agree with the expert on the parameters and the methods to be used. And at least there is an important step is to define a strategy for monitoring. The feasibility of monitoring for manager is very important to know, and you have to detect all the constraints and to study all the constraints in order to know if monitoring and also assessment is feasible. So an important publication is this one from the Regional Activity Center of Specially Protected Area Protocol within the Barcelona Convention. And so you will find a lot of detail in this publication. If I focus only on biological constraints, you can see for species, it is important to see if the distribution of the species is wide in order to compare between sites the result of your monitoring. If the ingested litter amounts are sufficient to have comparable measurement, to understand the harm and so on. And then if I go to the case studies, the ingestion on birds has been studied since a long time, and within OSPAR region, the Fulmar glacialis the studies allowed to define an ecological objective, which is the GES is below 10% of occurrence with more than 0.1 gram of litter. So you can see here that between the region, you can really see difference. So, it means that it's a very good indicator and species. For sea turtle, the loggerhead have been chosen are a good indicator species and a good indicator for evaluating the impact of litter in the Mediterranean. And it has been recently also adopted by OSPAR. And one project in this starting in the 17, and working especially on this indicator for developing all the indicator and all the approach and defining also threshold. So in 2019, you can see a common protocol was produced by REXPA and INDICIT, and for OSPA guidelines were also produced, and the TGML workshop for revising guidelines worked with experts in order to produce revised and new protocols for monitoring impact of foreign litter. So INDICIT has several objectives. If you go on the website, you will find the pilot studies, the standard protocols, the video tutorial also, which is very important for measuring the debris in the dead turtle. As you can see, there is a regional cooperation between the state and the contracting party of OSPAR and the Barcelona Convention region. Several analyses and tests were performed. For example, here you can see the data which have been used for tests, and one of the tests was to test what was the minimal sample size necessary for detecting the 10% of change in dry mass. Here you can see a map with different occurrence of ingestion for loggerhead. Another important work done by INDICIT was to see the feasibility of environment monitoring and to see which indicator could be defined. Then there was a compilation of knowledge, literature survey, and also a survey through questionnaire which were sent and replied by 8 countries. Here you can see an example of what we can find in the publication and useful for monitoring choice. Spatial temporal variability in non-breeding Morus marsanus. You can see that the variability depending on the age of the individual. I will not go into details. You can then also look at all this publication, and you can see here a table which was presented at the International Marine Debris Conference, and you can see the prevalence also, and an analysis of all the sampling platform which are used for collecting data in different compartments of the sea. For example, you have the rescue centers, the stranding network, which are very important, and also the nest monitoring networks. These are platform used for collecting data on megafauna. And also then you have the campaign, the aerial survey, the at-sea campaigns, remotely operated vehicle, which are used for invertebrate benthic organism monitoring. And some constraints here are provided in the table to show the more important constraint which has been detected within the study and also within the RAXPA study. So you can see that there are some pros and cons in using seals, sea turtle, birds, and fish for monitoring entanglement. And also you have several there is a main constraints for methodological constraints for vertebrates is that possible confusion between material from a bycatch rather than for ghost fishing. Bycatch is active fishery operation, but ghost fishing is fishing through marine debris coming from fisheries, but it's marine litter. So this work is currently also examined by INDICIT2 project and by TGML. And for birds, this is a special special observation because in fact birds they pick the debris to the nest and the chicks are being entangled by the marine litter. In this case, you can distinguish, of course, that it is not active bycatch. It's really true marine litter which is responsible for entanglement. And this is a way of monitoring the impact. Here you can see several constraints which has been highlighted by RAXPA. Then you have to compose with that all that constraint to design the proper monitoring and a proper assessment if you use those kind of species. For sea turtles and for seals, they are rescue centers. This is very interesting because you can observe the impact of alive animals and observe all the time the individual will stay in the rescue center. Then observation were already performed and reported by the center, but there is a need of standard method and need of training to this standard method, and what is very important, a need for stable funding resources. This is why in France, for example, for sea turtle, the Office for Biodiversity is funding the monitoring of stranding network and a rescue center in order to make sure that the standard protocol and the collection of data are stable and will allow a proper assessment. For invertebrates, there are also a lot of pros because you have sessile species and you know the distribution. And it's relatively easy to describe the category of impact. Furthermore, you have available data since a long time, thanks to images which have been taken during at-sea campaigns for other topics like monitoring of stocks and so on. But the cons is the cost. Of course, this is a high cost monitoring. However, the heavy logistic exists and might be mutualized. Then in the INDICIT survey and feasibility study produced several recommendations and action were proposed for for going further in this entanglement feasibility study. Some of them are currently examined and or have been performed, like training. They are, I have to highlight also the input of a European project, Med Region project, for example, which are conducted pilot studies and providing expertise, very important for the process of monitoring and assessment. There was, for example, a workshop organized in last February in order to make a gap analysis on entanglement. Another project, Medsiliter, provide also expertise and also tested and disseminated protocols for floating debris, mainly in interaction with biota. Plastic Buster, an important project which focus more on marine protected area, is the first basin scale coordinated program, and which deals on marinita impacts on biodiversity, and in identifying a hotspot of interaction and marine litter. And the experts will provide also recommendation for mitigation measures. This project and others have been testing the protocol for invertebrates through the diving, scientific diving, but also recreational divers, and through remote operating vehicles. And the result we confirm or not if, for example, recreational divers and scientific diving may be a way to monitor efficiently the impact of marine litter on species. The expert consultation is an important step and for standardized protocol. So during the workshop in 2019, the TGML guide, the revision of European guidelines was the topic of the workshop, and expert propose new protocols or updated protocols to be included in the guidance. So here is for sea turtle, here is for birds, here is for howl-out seals, which is completely new, and also for invertebrates. So for invertebrates, categories of action have been defined, and picture will allow also to know which category you can observe. Then this is a big work, and which will provide an important support to manager for the monitoring process to be developed in the future. So defining a strategy is after knowing the parameter you want to follow, how to optimize the data collection. So how you will collect the data, where, who will do that, when is that, at which frequency, with continuous or discontinuous, which tool you will be using, and do you need before the true monitoring a testing period? How can you make the best structuration of the monitoring data collection platform? Do we need to train people? And how much does this cost? Is that possible to mutualize with other sampling platform? And also the data management I was speaking about at the beginning of my talk. Then you see that all the process for monitoring is supported for sure by researchers and by experts, and And also these people are participating and providing support to the manager, for example, for training and transferring all the methods. For example, here you can see the session which has been organized by RAXPA in Tunisia in November 2018, and several countries from Mediterranean were invited to send representative for learning how to collect data about ingestion of marine litter on sea turtle. And thank you for your attention. We have two short videos in order to show you how the sea turtles are easily ingesting plastic litter, and also are often entangled by marine litter. So I think that Erasmia and Margherita will show you. Thank you your attention.
I will show you using my screen now. Okay, and if you have any questions you would like to ask to Françoise, you can write them on the chat, the questions box now, and while we watch the videos. One minute. Okay. And let's find the second one.
So I don't know if you can see the video well. The sea turtles, they are really propensity to ingest litter. In fact, it has been said that they can confound the plastic bags, for example, with jellyfish. But in fact, here in the video, you can see that they ingest a lot of things like caps of bottles or things like that. And also, we have been finding some filters uses for water treatment, and they really can ingest everything. And we don't know exactly why. Maybe there is a smell of something draft on the plastic, or the color also has been studied. And and then they really ingest very often plastics, and depending on region, you may have 100% of turtle having ingested plastic in the digestive tract or even excreting in the pond. Concerning the entanglement, this is also a very important problem for the sea turtle, but also for a lot of other species. And the turtle may also be attracted by food. For example, you know, the FAD, the fish aggregating device, or the litter can act as a FAD. And in fact, below this litter or FAD, there may be food, and then they of course are sensitive to that, and may be entangled when they are attracted by this litter. And also the turtles, they like to bath, to take sun baths, and then they may also climb on the FAD and be entangled. And a lot of FADs are unfortunately broken because of storm and things like that. Then I think
Françoise, we have a question for you. If you
okay.
Yes. It says that as you know, macroplastic is spreading of alien invasive species, and the question is whether you have a specific protocol for monitoring this connection.
A special protocol for monitoring?
Macroplastic relation with alien invasive species.
With alien invasive species. This is a question I think no, but maybe François Gargini would more be able to reply that. Unfortunately, it's like a question I don't know a lot. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much for the very interesting talk today. It was, for me, a lot of things I didn't know, and it was really good to hear. Yes, there is somebody else if would like to know what is the best solution to tackle this plastic crisis, and also what is the importance of plastic quantification if the plastic has been produced, if the plastic has been produced and there is no change.
And there is no
change. I mean, and it continues to be produced, I believe. But I think that the first is that what do you think would be the solution to tackle this plastic crisis? What is your opinion about it?
My opinion. My opinion is that it's very important to find new material which will replace the actual undegradable plastic, and also to involve a lot of voluntary citizen action. But really, the big problem is economical problem. It's very difficult to stop from one day to another all the production of plastic. But I know François Galgani told me that there will be a very big involvement of Europe for studying all that innovative process. And if I give my opinion, but a lot of you already do not use most plastic bottles, or but I think that it would be very interesting that contracting party and European countries work on the glass bottle. Coming back to the glass bottles would be a first solution, very important, I think.
Okay, good. We have time for one more question. And it's a question coming from the part of the less developed countries. And if you have any suggestions on what can be done in these countries to regarding the plastic pollution. The less developed, the non-European countries, and what can be done in these cases for the plastic pollution.
Well, there is an action plan for each basin. Then every action plan is defining measures to be implemented in order to tackle this problem. Then there's no one single measure to take. Then the problem is that it takes time to agree about all this, and the most quickly solution is to do it myself, yourself, each self can do something at home and use the less packaging we can. And the other solution are decided through the regional sea convention and European frameworks. And I think that probably a big problem in the less developed country is the managing of the waste in urban zones, urban areas. This is if you have the waste just beside the sea or beside the river, and there is no measure for avoiding that it will be flying at sea or in the river. For sure, all the debris will come to the sea and increase pollution.
Yes, waste management is for sure a solution for to manage, better waste management, and of course
waste management and individual measure, citizen.
Okay, thank you, Françoise. It was
You're welcome. Thank you for
very interesting. And everybody, you will be able to find today's and yesterday and the days before lecture on the website. And we hope to be able to see you on our next webinars, and you can follow the whole of the course either through the webinars or the lecture material that will be uploaded. And just so that to let you know that we will be able to send you a declaration of attendance at the end of the course, and also we will have a survey for satisfaction. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.